Okay, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel over here on Patreon. I want to thank everyone right off the bat. You guys are super. Thank you very much. We've got Chris P. Bacon back, and of course, we've got Jolene moderating in the background, cracking the whip on us, putting us to work. We've got an interesting broadcast for you. We've kind of worked on a bit, and after the end of a long weekend and some careful thinking, the word uncertainty kept coming up in some conversations. So I want to talk about uncertainty with Chris today, and I would like everyone at home to play along. So there's uncertainty, and I talked about this, I think, a few months ago. It was just a topic, but now we've got more fuel to add to it. We've got market uncertainty, political uncertainty, social uncertainty, and maybe even a little bit of patriot uncertainty. Right now, to me, knowing the facts, seeing how things are going, I can feel certain about them. And when you're certain of activities, events, you can make decisions, take actions, progress, be productive, that sort of thing. But when we have uncertainty, it's my opinion that people get scared. They don't know what to do. They sit back. And I think that's an area both America and the world is heading into, and that is some uncertain times. So, Chris, would you like to add to that a little before we delve into some more specifics?
Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's my observation. Every weekend, I get my observation and my amazement always goes toward how every Friday seems to be some sort of a cliffhanger lately. We have these crazy weeks, bunch of statements and rumors and rumors of war and rumors of this and that come along, and then all of a sudden Friday, it's like I know that the best news sources are alternative news sources on the web, and not all those sources are adding to stories and working all weekend. And the mainstream media just they're all out to lunch for the weekend. They just keep replaying the same stuff over and over again too. So the world, it sometimes really annoys me that the world stops on Friday and then begins again with rumors and anticipation, few little things trickle out on Sunday night, and then the world starts again on Monday. I think this has got to be the longest list I made of uncertainties since we started talking about like the next week's upcoming news.
Well, very interesting. Well, rather than play off my list, let's play off yours, and I'll jump in and throw my opinions out. I'm sure your list is very similar to mine. Since we're both preppers, we both watch economics and politics. We're seeing a lot of the same things, maybe from different perspectives, which makes it so much fun to have you on here. It's like having a bald John on the other camera.
Yeah, that's right. I'm your ugly bald brother. Yeah. All right. So let me I've got headlines and subtitles. I'll zoom through them. Under the headline of shutdown, I've got subtitle National Border Emergency, and then the word SNAP, because I think some people are going to snap, and the SNAP program is going to be out of money.
Let's talk about SNAP first. I want to go right to SNAP.
Get in there.
I like that one. SNAP is the Supplemental Nutritional Program, I believe. Is it not?
Yes.
That's welfare. That's the EBT card, the SNAP program, or is it different than EBT? Or is it all the same?
SNAP includes, the affected parts of the SNAP program will not be school lunches and some of the smaller programs, but SNAP and WIC, the Women, Infant, Children program.
Okay. They're all part of the entitlement, the help and hand up that the government gives.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it not being paid out? You're seeing some uncertainty there?
Well, if the shutdown persists, people are projecting now, if it persists up to March, which, I mean, I don't know if it's possible that it could, but if it does, the SNAP program is out of money. So it sounds to me like the distributions are going to go out this month, and they've got enough for next month, but not after that. So
Trump threw out at the end of the week that we could go all up to 2020 with with the government shutdown. He threw that out there like a wild man. Talk about leaving the country hanging, uncertain. That's a lot of fear for people who want their handouts. Well,
he's holding the cards right now because he can do that. He has the final go on approval of the budget, and he's really pressing his hand to see if they'll break on this wall issue. And the reason why I put under my headline shutdown the national border security is that we're also seeing stories that there's record number of people breaching the border as we speak, and it's kind of sounding to me like maybe this is a bigger issue than anybody's telling us right now. And this idea of declaring a national emergency, I assume, would involve sending troops or National Guard or whatever to back up the current border security.
Right. That came up last week. The Trump, the administration was sending more military to the border. I've got a couple of interesting reports privately that in certain areas, the border's wide open and they're pouring through. And I do see that as an emergency. Personally, I don't like being shot or stabbed or killed, and I don't like anyone else here being shot or stabbed or killed or kidnapped and sold, who knows, right? But because
there's a lot of people at harm, not only are our sovereign borders being breached and Americans are being compromised by an influx of undocumented individuals, but we had 2 children die last week from some unknown disease. A lot of people are coming through, and I think that not only is there a 24-state flu epidemic going on right now, but I think a lot of people are sick at the border now, and so this could be a very valid reason, just like a tornado, hurricane, or anything else, for Trump to declare a national emergency, and could even end up with troops there indefinitely. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. The not having this issue settled is huge. What is it? $5, $6, $7 billion the president wants. I know that's significant, but at the same time, it seems very necessary. To not do it, we're seeing the difficulties with it. We're being invaded from the south, and people can be weaponized as biological carriers of who knows what god awful disease. So it's pretty scary, and I think it's starting to bother more and more people. People in New York or maybe Tacoma, they don't feel it the way the southern states do, the border states in particular. So there's a lot of fear down there. There's a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen. And because the Democrats want to fight with Trump over the color of shit, they'll fight with him over anything. You would almost think he would do the Bugs Bunny and say, I don't want the wall, so that they start saying we want the wall.
Yeah, right.
It's asinine.
Well, funding of $5.9 billion doesn't mean that a wall suddenly pops up either.
Right.
So I think that there will be a need for troops on the border to help keep things under control. I think we're understaffed in that capacity, and it's just going to get worse unless they get the funding. Now, unfortunately, a lot of that money is probably going to be spent on treating the symptoms of not having a good border or wall. Personally, just as a side sideline. I'm a technology guy. I think there's several great technological possibilities besides a physical wall. Basically, a surveillance perimeter, could be drones. We're capable of much more high-tech things than walls. And I haven't heard any of those, but to me, a wall could be either a physical concrete wall, which may help some, but I think there's other ways to do it too that actually might even be cheaper and faster, cover more territory.
Right. Yeah. There's going to need to be people down there regardless, because they're going to go over and get under. The wall is going to stop everyone except the most desperate and hardened and determined people. And that's really what it's going to stop. So who gets past it from that point on, you can pretty much bet they're going to be, as the president has said in the past, bad hombres. And,
well, they're desperate. You use the word desperate, and they're desperate hombres too, because Mexico is fairly stable, but you go anywhere south of Mexico, and almost every country is fighting starvation, runaway inflation, horrible conditions, horrible economies, and ruthless dictators.
Right. Yeah, and they're being promised the golden land up here, the promised land, and right. It's quite a mess. Politics. We're kind of talking about politics in this regard to the uncertainty right now. Our country is completely divided politically. There's no defined path or American mission. That I think is really important. People don't know what to root for, what to believe, because they hear different stories from everybody. The news tells a different story than the alternative media. The Democrats tell a different story than the Republicans, and we have nothing in common. There's huge amounts of division and strife, and it's leaving everyone basically wondering, what is it to be an American? This is my opinion. And they're uncertain about what it is we're supposed to believe in. One day you're told one thing, the next day it's something else. We're supposed to be concerned about X, Y, but really Z is important. And I think it's causing a lot of trepidation in people's belief systems. Right?
Sure. Yeah, good point. There isn't anybody pulling everybody together behind one cause. I mean, it's not like the moon mission or 9/11, when everybody really coalesced together behind one common cause. We're really lacking that.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that cracks me up the most, and it just makes the point crystal clear, is the word tolerance. We were told that as Americans, we need to be more tolerant of other people's politics or religions or races. We need to be tolerant. And if you don't be tolerant the way whoever the hell they is, if you're not tolerant their way, they have a no tolerance policy to punish you in your workplace, socially, politically. They're intolerant of our intolerance, and their reaction is violent. So it's just, there's no mission, no belief system. There's no unified America anymore.
Well, and a good 50% of the nation is pretty much locked out of having any kind of voice now in the media, or even in what we thought was the free market of YouTube, Patreon. Now, last week, even MasterCard refused to work, or was kind of compelling Patreon to shut down channels, and refusing to process Patreon transactions for certain video bloggers. And this is also part of the great divide and anxiety and frustration when you've got these tech moguls among the top 6 technical companies, along with now what appears to be creeping into the banking system with PayPal and MasterCard. And what really got me last week when I saw that about MasterCard and Patreon and learned more about it was the idea that for having certain ideas, you could be virtually separated from your income, separated from the bank. Really scary, bad new developments. It's a very bad direction.
Right. That kind of rolls for me under social, but also technology. But the social, what we're supposed to think and believe and interact with each other, very uncertain. Do we have free speech, or is free speech only for these special groups, either the feminist group or this race group or that belief system? But there's nowhere people can speak their mind, so they're uncertain about what we're allowed to say. One week you're not allowed to say the word, for example, queer. The next week the queers are calling themselves queers, and everyone can use the word queer again. And I just think that's kind of queer. Right. It's really unclear what we're allowed. I'm totally uncertain. Yeah, am I allowed to talk about this, Chris?
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's all just suppressing any kind of conversation, any kind of opposing opinions. Have you ever watched the Steven Crowder's videos he does where he says, wage gap is a myth, change my mind?
Yeah. He does social experiments pretty good.
Yeah. And what I notice with every one of those videos he does, usually with young people on campuses, is that they're quite willing to turn over the decision about who should be able to speak or not and what they should be able to speak about. They're perfectly willing to turn that over to the very government that they should be demanding their right of free speech from. But they want some higher power, whether it's at the university or government, to pass a law about what can be uttered between people.
Yeah, that's very scary. That pushes us into a world that if you're going to acquiesce to the recognized authority figure or group, that can change in a heartbeat, right? In an election, it can change from Republican to Democrat, and the Democrat Party can change in a heartbeat from blue dog Democrat to socialist communist. And now you're going to look to that group and you're going to trust and believe them. It used to be we're self-reliant, we have morals, a foundation that we understand politics and social dynamics on. Now, politeness, Chris, that seems to have gone by the wayside. Yeah, now we're looking, is it okay to say this? And we're asking permission, where we should be able to say what we want. And then, for example, here on Patreon or on YouTube, if you don't like somebody, you can just walk away. You don't have to go watch them. But now everyone wants to cry. First, they want to put an opinion out. Then they want to cry about it, get you kicked off, and punish you for violating what they consider to be bad speech because they learned about that in school, where their political leader says you shouldn't be allowed to say such a thing. So people are less reluctant to speak, and because they're uncertain of what the punishment is, what the social implications are. We talk about frequently how you can lose your job now for saying the wrong thing or posting something on Facebook that's offensive. And people have tried getting me fired. They've tried and they've failed so far because they don't like my opinion. And it's incredible that we can't have an opinion in this world. And it's how do we put this? It just gives us a great sense of where we're at in this world and how things are going to hell in a handbasket when you're not even allowed to say anything for fear of losing your job or being socially reprimanded by a tech company. It's incredible to me.
Yeah, they fail to recognize that free speech was part of the reason why minorities were able to get press the Civil Rights Amendment. And I mean, imagine if you're in a minority and you're purple and everybody else is green. If you're purple and you aren't allowed to speak, you'll never be able to bring your issues up and get the world changed to make things more equal for you. But they're perfectly willing to impose that on someone who simply has an opinion, and they confuse an opinion with a call to action. If I have an opinion that John is a real asshole, that's fine. That's totally legal. The law actually does protect you if I say, go get John, slash his tires, paint graffiti on his house. That's a call to action, and there's laws for that. But,
right.
People don't know law. They don't understand the Constitution anyway.
Right. The price, I think, that we're going to see on a lot of these things is out of uncertainty comes very much or high certainty. In politics, people don't know what our path is, but when someone comes to power, some group, they're going to be very certain and come to a defined path. Same with social things. Right now, people don't know what to do. If things go to hell, if we have big time social unrest, or as you talked about, interruptions in supply or government handouts, entitlement programs, people will come to a conclusion, a decision. They're going to blame somebody. They're going to become very certain of what action they need to take to either correct the problem or get revenge. And we're supposed to do everything, I think, to get along, and that the world is supposed to get better by making these decisions. But all of these decisions we're making are leading to more uncertainty, and things are getting worse. And people are going to start reacting with frustration as they fall apart. And I think that's it. We're seeing pieces of that big time in Europe, and we're starting to see it here.
Sure. Yeah. There was another outbreak of violent protests in France this weekend. And they're, like you said, they're lashing out at whoever's currently in charge. And you can change the administration, change hands. It'll be the same. I mean, they're just gonna. Unfortunately, a lot of them feel like just burn it all down. Let's just. Anyway, so I've got some other things on my list here. I don't know if you want to move past SNAP and free speech.
Yeah, let's do
it. The next thing I have under the headline of secrecy and revelations, just uncertainty. I don't know where this stands right now. The declassification of the Russian documents, that's still another plate spinning in the air. Hacker group Dark Overlord with 18,000 documents on 9/11. They actually today, or maybe it was yesterday, they released the first wave of those documents just to show that they actually did break into the law firms of Larry Silverstein, the owner of the World Trade Center, and a couple of insurance companies. So they mean business, and they didn't release obviously the most inflammatory stuff, but they're proving that they actually have it.
Now here's my question. Why aren't they releasing it to the public right away and give us the information that's so prized and dangerous? What are they holding out for? Why are they not giving out? Is this an extortion racket?
Yes. Oh no, it's ransom. It's ransom. Right. Yeah. And I looked at 4 or 5 articles, and I can't figure out the exact target, but
they want Bitcoin, right?
They want Bitcoin, and I assume that the target, they call it a public ransom. So it's like whoever wants to pay it, get in there and pay it, and we won't release.
Yeah, it could be real information. I don't know. This, like the Q thing, and they're going to do a declassification. All of that information is based on hearsay. People want to believe it, and they invest themselves emotionally in it, Chris. And other people, they completely don't believe it, and so there's a lot of uncertainty and guesswork. It's up in the air. This 9/11 thing, okay, they've got a bunch of secret documents that they've captured. Is that going to change anything? Or will it change everything and show that, aliens invaded and they're lizard people? And if that's the case, we're going to have mass chaos in this country and around the world. we're we're all we're in the middle of a pause. We're holding our breath. We're waiting for something to happen, the shoe to, the shoe to drop, the dime to drop.
Sure, sure.
We need to know so we can
go ahead.
But we need to have our answers so we can make a decision and then be certain of what it is we need to do and take action. They're holding all these carrots out in front of us and we don't get any answers. What is really going on? It's fascinating on the one hand, but
yeah, they want their money, and it's just another. I'm from the Midwest. I don't know about California. Maybe have you ever been out on a canoe or a rowboat fishing, and
yes,
and horseflies are like dive bombing you, and they have a way of just like surprise stinging you. This just feels like there's just stuff going on,
Yes. And you can't get a hand on it.
Right. So, all right. So that one didn't really get you too excited. How about under the headline of war? Four topics. Iran. 4 headlines. Iran and Russia to hold joint naval exercises in the Caspian Sea. Number 2, President Xi orders Chinese army to prepare for war. Number 3, U.S. to hold first ever missile drill on Japan's Okinawa. And then the big number 4 is Trump says we're pulling out of Syria. Somebody else says, no, we're not. Are we in? We out? Or what are we doing?
Right. Yeah. I didn't know you were trying to get me all riled up, Chris.
Well, I mean, you don't care about Dark Overlord hackers. So.
Oh, I do. I care very much about Dark Overlord, but I need some fucking answers. I need to know, is that guy serious? What can he know that hasn't been uncovered already by the Truth Movement investigations, pilots and air traffic controllers for 9/11 Truth, architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, all of the on-the-ground work, the interviews with people who were in the building when bombs were going off in the basement, looking at the video, examining it from a controlled demolition perspective, the Building 7 debacle, the ties to the Pentagon, the crash in Pennsylvania, Shanksville. Since 9/11 and just shortly a few months after it, I've been following this, developing it, waiting for it to mean something. It's cool, though, that they're opening another investigation primarily to look at Building 7, but the whole thing. But Building 7, they're going to talk about. And I want the answers. I want the truth. We need to know who the hell is involved. We can hold them accountable. But here we are. We know Hillary's involved in Uranium One.
Right. We're not doing anything about that.
And nothing's being done about it. We have evidence of a crime. We have an injured party. In law, you need an injured party. We have that. We have a culprit or an alleged perpetrator. We've got all this. So this Dark Lord guy, what has he got? Has he got real documentation? Yeah. And will it matter? Will it matter?
That's the big one, too. I see your point there. So let's say they prove that Building 7 was a controlled demolition, and they've got the document right there. The insurance company says they detected C4 on every column of every floor. Does anybody really do anything then? Is that what you're saying? I mean, maybe they still don't do anything.
Right. That's what I'm afraid of. But all the while they're ignoring those crimes. What other crimes are being perpetrated while we're looking backwards, trying to figure those out? And this Dark Overlord is another group. Are they hacking into Wall Street? Are they hacking into the NASDAQ and the Chicago Mercantile Exchange? Are they hacking into the trading floors and they're going to bring it down? Or hacking into Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo? Are they hacking into those banks so that they can screw up the banking, the SWIFT system, the electronic transfer money system, so they can, basically false flag us, screw us?
I wonder if all these things going on are great distractions for all the other stuff they don't want us to be paying attention to.
Right. One of the big things was the government stepping up and saying we should have 6 months of food. right? We should be prepared for a 6-month emergency. That's very fascinating that they went from, a week or a couple of weeks to 6 months. Is there something else going on in the background?
I know what that's all about. We know what that's all about, right? That's that blue flash over New York that was all over the news. People are speculating that's everything from a UFO to an EMP attack, and that there's an imminent EMP attack, and that's why whoever in the administration said to start stocking up food.
Right. That's one of them.
Right.
But let's jump over to the war thing again. Maybe it's because of the war that is very possible with Russia or China, or that could break out in the Middle East. That could interrupt oil supplies. We've got a very fragile distribution system. It's I've talked about it in the past, but it's the on time or right on time delivery, where companies used to have shelves stocked with whatever it was they sold or food that they made for the restaurant. Now it's, what do I need? And I'll get it the next day. This just-in-time delivery. Well, that's trickled backwards from the retail to the wholesaler to the major distribution hubs and back to manufacturing, so that nobody is keeping anything more than they absolutely have. They have bare minimum shelves. And if we get any bubbles or hiccups and you interrupt that, we're going to have trouble. Stores will run out.
The more I thought about our discussion last week, the way the food distribution system works is it goes to regional warehouses and then from there to the stores. And we were kind of speculating that it might be worse for people away from big cities than people in the big cities. And the more I thought about that, I thought, wow, that really makes sense. Usually we talk about, cities on fire and mass chaos, people running through the street in the big cities. In the case of food, the actual panic and the real problems could be outside those city limits where the major food distribution centers are. Because they might not be able to travel the roads, and they might be overwhelmed with just keeping peace and panic down in the major population areas.
Right. And so these regional distribution warehouses, they're not necessarily right in the middle of a big city, though. They can be outside a city 20 or 30 miles.
Usually on the outskirts, yeah.
Yeah, so they'll feed north or south and east and west of where they're at, not necessarily just a particular city, but still, they're usually relatively close. They need to rely on the labor and manpower, but at the same time, they want to avoid those high inner city taxes, and that's why they place these warehouse manufacturing storage facilities outside of major cities. I know that that's the reason for it, but it's we can speculate the difficulty that they're going to have in the country and in the city.
You want to talk about the markets a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Talk about one of the most uncertain things that's going on. Market managers, they don't seem to know what to do. Over the weekend, you said there's not much going on. I read news articles. This company says we're going to have a bull market again. Everyone's going to buy the stocks. And over here, these market managers are going, it's a bear market. We're going into hedging. We're buying bonds. We're going to protect ourselves. The media doesn't know what the hell they're doing. And the people are scared to death. Anyone with a pension or a 401k or a government retirement, they're really uncertain about their future now. What do you got?
Well, the thing is, I think at this point, the smart money already rushed out of the market. I think, unfortunately, I think some of the smaller investors, individual investors, might still be living in a buy the dip world. But what we have to watch now, and really doesn't matter to me because I'm out on the sidelines, And when uncertainty strikes, my natural reaction is to do nothing and think and watch and observe. If I had better information about what was going to happen next, I'd be right in there. But I don't have any better information. We've got about 10 large firms represent 80% of the market activity. We're talking about your Chases, your Morgan Stanleys, your Vanguards, your big fund managers, and what they do over the next day, 2 or week is really these guys know, and you got to watch what they do. If it's low volume, it's not them. These crazy, this volatility, wild swings, that happens during times of low volume, which is very typical for what we should have seen last week, coming off a holiday, not everybody back in their seat. I work down the financial district here. It's very quiet down there. And the week before, which was crazy and wild too, those were relatively low volume, crazy swings. And by the way, last week, even with this market recovery that a lot of the, what do we call them, beard strokers on, the smart guys, a lot of them were saying, it's time to buy again. We had a net increase of 80 points last week. This was not a good recovery.
But for me, talk about uncertainty. The market goes up, wildly down, wildly up. And then, it ends up basically flat. They don't know where to go. They're like chickens with their heads cut off. And
on a rumor of a rumor, somebody said, one of the Fed guys said a sentence in a certain way and used these certain words. That is not normal to trigger, what was it, 600-700 point rise in the Dow.
That's nothing that you should base your investment decisions on, I would think, is a rumor or a hope. I mean, everything I've read that's more advanced in economics says you need to dissociate yourself, dispassionately look at the information, not on hopes and wants and dreams, but on what is the real information. But people they're betting on the rumor. They get excited over the rumor. That's an emotion. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be calculating. Anyways, that's what's happening. Yeah, it's incredible to me.
And what is everybody excited about? More easy money. That is exactly the reason why we're having the problems we're having now. Is this easy money that caused huge misallocations and misappropriations of investments, that's kept everybody who's trying to save for their retirement unable to save in anything except for very high risk instruments. What are my 80 and 90-year-old parents doing in the stock market, for God's sakes? Well, they're in there because they can't get a decent return on a CD. They're losing money to inflation. And now that the 10-year rate is below the stated target inflation rate, which we all know is bullshit anyway. We know that inflation is a lot higher than they tell us. But every single person now who has a savings account, CD, short-term bond, if you've got your money tied up in a 30-year bond now, you might be making like 0.03% or something. You're not going to retire on that. It used to be you could get a 5, 6, 7, 8% return on your savings, and that would get you through retirement. But none of this makes any sense. They should not be cheering more easy money. However, as you brought up last week, the box the Fed is in, you saw what happened when the rate got up over 3. That triggered this current 20% downturn. So they need to raise interest rates, but they can't.
Right. And they're in trouble. They can't go left. They can't go right. The market's uncertain. The people running it are uncertain. The Fed is uncertain. Last month they were hawkish. Now they're saying, well, this could be the last rate hike, or maybe they're going to lower it if they, everyone gets locked in. Right now they're buying the shit out of bonds, so they're going to be locked in. They're holding a 5-year or 10-year bond or a 30-year bond, and then they say, well, now the market's crashed. We're going to have to use QE, flood the market with cheap, easy money, which, as you've pointed out, everyone else that's got a brain points it out. That's what got us in trouble in the first place. How is doing more of the same going to save us? It's like a heroin addict needs a fix, so they shoot up 3 or 4 times. It'll kill them. Anyways, inflation's coming. Inflation's coming.
Yeah.
And so what are you going to do with these 3% bonds you bought if inflation's 12%? You've locked in, you're lost. You're screwing yourself.
Exactly. So on the news that there was going to be more cheap money from the Fed, everybody got a little sugar high and went crazy Friday.
To finish flat, basically. They got a sugar high to finish flat.
Yeah.
That's all they got out of that.
Yep. They were getting, it was like a junkie. You had the shakes. Now they got leveled out.
All right. Well, I want to wrap up this with you, but what I want to do that I can't stand this on a lot of channels is they talk about news, but they're afraid to make predictions. I like making predictions, not because I'm so good at them, but because I'm trying to gauge my ability to follow what's happening, see what's coming, and position myself. So I want to ask you, socially, what do you predict is going to happen as the Democrats, so this is socio-political, as we move into the spring? Are we going to see anything right away? The Democrats want to impeach Clinton. They want to impeach Trump. What kind of predictions do you have socially and politically?
Well,
that we can see some happening in the next week or so.
I'm going to have to repeat what we talked about last week. I think they hold their big guns for later in 2019. I think that there's a whole lot of it's like 2 cats spitting at each other for a while now for the next for this quarter. I see some major event like a declared emergency at the border. Market wise, I see a little bit of a sugar high coming. I think they're going to back this news of more easy money up with some positive news on the China trade deal. I'm not going to be fooled by the market getting right back up to the highs it was at. But the higher it flies again, the more people are going to get caught with their pants down, and it's just going to be worse. I think we arrive at the same place by late summer, which is earnings reports for first and second quarter just degrade, and we've got big inflation on our hands, and we're off to the races with the beginning of a pretty deep recession.
So I'll predict that politically we're going to continue to have stalemate in D.C., and we're going to continue to see fighting between the ultra left and the left versus the right. And the video I'm probably going to do tomorrow, you're going to really like, everyone should really like, has to do with the left paradigm. Everyone's over on the left fighting about who's the best authoritarian. I think, but I think we're going to have some trouble coming up. Maybe not this week, but I'm with you on in the next couple of weeks, the border's going to be a bigger problem. What to do about it? Someone's going to have to take some action. I don't think we're going to get declassification. I don't think they're going to pay this ransom to Dark Lord. And I think we could start seeing a little bit more trouble as we get into January. And economically, before we got all this bad news in December, I was thinking it would be springtime before we started seeing action on the downward with the market. And I'm predicting we're going to see more chaos up and down, more wild gesticulations. There'll be those sugar high days, and then I think there's going to be some big profit taking and some big positioning to prepare themselves for the bear market that's coming, the recession that's coming.
So the positive part of both scenarios we talked about is that if someone was thinking about getting prepared and isn't quite where they think they should be preparation-wise, that we've got a good chance of a few more months to get our act together.
Yeah, that I definitely agree with. I don't foresee shit hitting the fan. There's not that type of event, but that can surprise us too. I mean, I recommend getting ready as soon as you can with food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, all that stuff. Means of self-defense especially. But yeah, it's going to be. My prognostication is we've got months before it really comes flying apart. But we're definitely seeing the signs. The clues are there, in my opinion, Chris.
Yeah, we're definitely headed more toward that direction, and I'm continuously surprised at how much faster it seems to be happening than anybody thought. Most of the experts on TV that are willing to open their mouth about anything are kind of pussyfooting around. Well, no recession till 2020, 2021, whatever. I'm not buying that.
Yeah, yeah. Even the experts are uncertain, which is kind of the theme of this discussion. Yeah. I believe that's a very big clue. People need to be prepared. Anyways, Chris, thank you again. Unless you've got some closing remarks, I guess we can wrap this up.
That's it, man. I'll see you next time.
Thanks. Yes, thank you very much, Chris. And yeah, we're going to do this again. This is fun.
All right.